Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I am Dragon, and today we're here to discuss the greatest, problem that everyone has been wondering. Who is going to be the next combiner in Hasbro's lineup of combiners that they are, putting out for Age of the Primes? This is the last year for the Age of the Primes, and then it will start the new toy line, which I'm sure they will continue the, combiner traits. Just like they did from Legacy to Age of the Primes. But for a recap, here's what we have now. So we have the core class Volcanicus combiner. Pretend this is the Volcanicus combiner. Then we also have this one right here, which is the Dino King combiner. Then we have Legacy Minosaur. I don't have all the parts to the original Minosaur, so G2 breakdown is on one side, and then we also have the drag strip on the other arm. I was never able to get a hold of that in. Now, next one was Age of the Primes Superion, and then we have the Studio Series 86 Devastator, and then now we also have the HasLab Lyo Kaiser with the Age of the Primes Bruticus. So that's all that we have currently for the mainline stuff. So let's get into the video. So how will they be ranked? Well, we have 16 combiners on our list today. I will tell you those in just a moment. But here's how they're going to be ranked. 1, obviously it's going to be sort of my opinion. My biases is always going to be, hey, this one's my favorite. This one's, not my favorite, so I don't think they would do it. 2, it's also my opinion of what I think Hasbro is willing to do. So, like retools, recolors of current combiners that we already have. I think they would be more likely to, switch up those colors, do a little bit of head sculpting, all that stuff, and bam, here we go. There's a new combiner. So those ones are going to be, higher up on the list versus someone like Volcanicus, or more your obscure combiners like God Neptune, King Poseidon, Skyrain, stuff like that. But I also have asked our community. That's on my TikTok page. So basically, every single time that they voted for a combiner to be remade, I will pop up their TikToks on the screen. That way you can go see them, go check out their pages, all that stuff. Most of these are also Transformer content creators, skit creators, or just overall IRL vlogs. So yeah, go make sure you go check them out. Now, here's the list. So we have Volcanicus, Victorion, Megatronia, Copatron, Defensor, Magnaboss, Tripredacus, Predaking, Raiden, Skyrain, God Neptune, Ultra Bee, Grand Galvatronus, Ruination, and last but not least, Optimus Maximus. So, now that we have all of our contenders up in the ring, let's get to the video. And in 16th place, coming in dead last, I think it would be Grand Galvatronus. He mainly fills the spot because, I don't think, Hasbro really knows what they're doing with this one. Now, they could easily retool the Age of the Prime Silverbolt into Cyclonus, and, make a Galvatronus frame mold out of that. But here's the problem with it. Grand Galvatronus, since he was introduced in 2015, has always been, so controversial with, its lineup. So, in Transformers Earth Wars, to say, his Limbots is basically Acid Storm, Mind Wipe, Astro Train, and Blitzwing. In the toy line, for the Combiner Wars one, it was Slingshot, Drag Strip, Breakdown, and Air Raid. So, it was one of those things that's already a difference. And then in RID, which is Robots in Disguise 2015 show, you had Skytrack, Cyber Warp, Tread Shock, and Riot Gear for another one. Now, if they did make a Grand Galvatronus mold, I think they would use, at least those names. I don't think they would use, the character designs. But at least those names, that way, it separates them from being just, so like a recolors of all that stuff. But honestly, I think they're going to do the exact same thing that they did with the Nexus Prime mold. Now, I know he's supposed to be getting more limb bots, but I think they would just basically make him, Cyclonus into like the Combiner torso, maybe include a frame with him, and just make him compatible with like the aerial bots, maybe the Stunnicons, maybe some of the Bruticus limbs. So, and basically just sort of switch them around. So it wouldn't be like it's a full-on combiner by himself, but it would be just regular old, Cyclonus just being a frame. But moving on to our 15th. Number 15th, we have Predaking. Now, I know it's sort of a toss-up. The Power of the Primed one was just reissued. That's why I have this Predaking so low, just because there ain't no way Hasbro would just reissue it and then come out with another set, maybe a month, 3 months later to start it off. So I really do think Hasbro would put this one on the back burner, especially with the Takara one also coming out. But this one did get 2 votes on my TikTok page. That is from this person here, Raleigh Clements, and this person, Carter, which believe this one definitely deserved a remold. But now, moving on to the 14th spot, we have Megatronia. Now, some of you might not know this one. This one was a Takara United Warriors sort of redeco of Victorion here. Instead of being the Autobot female combiner, it was now a Decepticon female combiner. It's really cool. If you have not seen it, I definitely, recommend, trying to see if you can find one. But I hate to tell you, most of the time on eBay, they are going for $400, $500. So good luck. But I do see this one being a HasLab sort of type thing. Or maybe they do Victorion, but then they would recolor them into the Megatronia. But I still think that would be, millions, not really millions, but, years off from where we are at now. So this one, I really hate to say it, but it's staying in 14th spot. In 13th place, we have Skyrim. Now, this is one of my personal favorites, alongside like the Fensor and Computron for the Autobot combiners. But here's the problem that I do see with it. Now, they did make a Siege mold, I think it was Siege, for Skylinks. I think they could easily, make the bottom half the the sort of frame portion of the combiner, and then, just have Skylinks as the regular thing. Because, we have seen where, Minosaur's trailer becomes like sort of a base. Maybe they could do the exact same, but it would take a lot of different molding. But, however, I also do think they could, what sort of separates this one from like Megatronia and all that stuff, they got it just a little bit higher. I do think that they could, redeco some of the Stunnicons to be some of the limbs. So like Wheeljack, Smokescreen. I'm trying to think who else was a part of the original team. Because in United Warriors, it was Trailbreaker, Ratchet, Smokescreen, and that. And the Combiner Wars one, it was Hound, Trailbreaker, Smokescreen, and Wheeljack. So, they have plenty of options to choose from, but I do think that this one probably would be skipped over or, just be made a frame torso. But hey, it could always be a HasLab, so, we just got to keep up hope for that. This one did not get any votes for the public, which I'm quite surprised, but I did, this one's my personal favorite, so I'm going to plug my own. Now, in 12th and 11th place, this one I think really could be sort of swapped around for each other, but I do think the 11th place will take more priority than 12th. The 12th one will be Ultra B. Ultra B is a combiner that was released in the 2015 RID show. This is basically made of Grimlock, Drift, Strong Arm, Swipe, and B himself. I do think that a mold could be used. They could use the frame stuff again. But make the frame into Grimlock's trailer that we see in the show. So there's an idea for them that they can use for it, and then we can have like Grimlock riding on top while the other ones are there. And I also think that they could really just take the Strong Arm mold from Legacy, put the combiner report like pieces that's on the chest, and then basically allow her to split in half, and bam, there we go, we have an arm. And then I think they could use the Wild Rider mold, retool it to be Sideswipe, and then bam, there we go. We got, another one. Now they would have to transform it from, a leg component to arm component, but I think it would be able to be done. Now, however, in 11th place, we have Raiden. Raiden is a train combiner from the G1 Headmasters. For those of you who don't know, it's 6 train bots. I will not be pronouncing their names, unfortunately, just because I can't really pronounce their names correctly, and I do not want to get them wrong. Takara did do this one, a little while back. They made their own version. I've watched multiple YouTube videos on them. Most of their opinions is typically, hey, I like this one, but go buy the Moon Studios version. So I do think, Hasbro might sort of take the same molds as, Takara has, since they are part of the same company. But, make them as a HasLab type, combiner. Change a few things that maybe they would actually look at our critiques and go from there. But like I said, both of these I see being HasLab, not mainline, so there we are. Moving on to 10th place. Here we go. Now, in 10th place, we have Victorion, which is this one right here. Now, Victorion is obviously the first female combiner. I do think it was actually sort of the fan vote type thing, like we had with the, Shark Soundwave, or not Soundwave, Shockwave. That we still have not heard anything from. Hasbro, please, we need something. Just show us something. But back on topic, I do think they would be able to do this one just because of the simple fact of they could retool everything. So retool the Onslaught to be prior Magma, add the trailer to be make it a long fire truck type looking thing, like you would see in the bigger cities like Chicago, New York, stuff like that, where it takes 2 drivers to one's in the front, one's in the back. I do think that would be cool. Retool and recolor Vortex to be a leg. There we go. You got the other. You got these 2. Sword Clash and the other one. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. And then you could also take, I'm sure you could probably take one of the Stunticons, like Dead End and some, or even Breakdown, make them into a arm component, and then bam, recolor them. There you go. You have Jump Stream and the other one. Sorry, I don't remember your name. But I do think that would be more in the mainline category. But I do see them, holding off on this one just because I really do think they're going to sort of focus on maybe the more popular ones. Though Victorion is talked about, I don't think she's talked about enough for, Hasbro to make a mainline figure of her just yet. Now, in 9th place, we have Volcanicus. Volcanicus is the Dinobot combiner that was first introduced around the comics, but also created for the Power of the Primes toy line. That's where we mainly saw it come out first. And then it was remade in 2021 to be that legacy combiner that you saw earlier. The core class 1 is great, but it does lack a bunch of stuff, like just putability, all that, proper feet, all that stuff. So, now the other ones like Monstructor and Dino King here, they do obviously come with feet and all that stuff, just because they did come in a box set. So, I do think that we would have to sort of deal with, what we got. But since Hasbro has taking a liking to the Dinobots here recently, we just got the reissues of, some of the original 86 guys that they made a few years ago. I think it's actually 86 Snarl that was just reissued. And then we have all the G2 colored guys. So, I'm just now seeing like the Sludge and I believe it's Slug that's packed together, that is now just hitting like my GameStops and stuff like that. I know they've been out for a while, but they're just now rotating through my area. So it's one of those things, I went one day, bam, they was gone the next. So people do have interest in the Dinobots. So I do think this one will be higher up. But I still think since they made the Legacy Core version, they're going to put their focuses on maybe some of the other combiners just to hold off until we do get those. Now, in 8th place, we have God Neptune and King Poseidon, I believe, is the other repaint version. So this combiner is made up of basically, I believe it's 5 Seacons that combine together. Now, I believe they was part of the original like Japanese versions of shows. They have been growing a lot more in popularity here recently. It's been a while, but Transformers Earth Wars did put out God Neptune. So, I do think they would be a combiner that, Hasbro would look at. But here's my thing. I do not think that they will do a regular size guy for this one. I think they will stick with the core class combiner molds that they have already made for, Monstructor, Dino King, and the Volcanicus mold. They'll just retool it like they did the other one. Slap a squid face on one, make one a sea turtle. Wada bing, wada boom. They'll put it out. But here's what I think will hold it back. They just announced Monstructor, so this one's probably going to be hold off just a little bit. I don't think it'll take them as much time from this point to the next, just because we do know that from some of the leaks from the 2027 one, according to Prime versus Prime, there is another core class combiner on the way that was not Monstructor. So maybe that one is it. So yeah, now we move on to 7th and 6th place. Now 7th and 6th place, I do think that is sort of interchangeable. I see both of them being made at the exact same time, but I do think they would be a mainline guys, but only if they made it just wait. These combiners are Magma Boss and Tripredacus. So what are these guys? These guys are the original combiners from basically the Beast Wars era. Now, I have never seen them until they actually got put into Transformers Earth Wars. Then I started actually liking them. Now, Tripredacus did get a combiner exclusive, I believe, a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive combiner. It was like all red with like certain, I think it was Ravage and some of the other guys, but it was not the actual Tripredacus and Magma Boss. Now, I did not know these guys until they actually came out in the Transformers Earth Wars one. I actually own both on both accounts, so I have sort of starting to take a liking to them, and I really wish that they did get a figure. With Magmatron that came out, in Legacy, the 3 bots, or 3, well, what's the word? The one dinosaur, one avian, and, you know, one marine reptile that all combined together into form Magmatron. I do think they would make it, if they made it as a mainline, I do not think they would be getting robot modes. Simple as that. I really do not think they would. You know, I personally would want, you know, each one, you know, like, I would like to see Beast Wars Ironhide get his own mold, Beast Wars Prowl to get his, Beast Wars Silverbolt, stuff like that. I do think, you know, it would be cool to have it, but if, you know, the expectations of, you know, having a mainline figure like Magmatron, I really do think they're just going to give us the animal figures that will combine into Magma Balls and Dryopithecus and push it out to us as a box set, and they'll just call it a day. And, you know, honestly, if it means that I can have one, would not complain. Now, do I wish that they would have bot modes? Of course, but still, would not complain if I got one either way. Now, in 5th place, I do think Abominus would get this, secure this spot, just because, you know, even though he had a Power of the Primes mold, I do think, you know, the popularity for Abominus, plus it is a G1 combiner, so I do think he would be more up there to sort of be, you know, made a little bit faster than the rest. So, you know, I do like that. You know, it's a whole team of, you know, Terracons. You know, a lot of people do from, I don't want to say my generation, but my generation grew up on the Predacons from Transformers Prime. So, you know, having similar beast modes to them, I enjoy them personally. I love every single one. I'm actually, you know, looking towards the third-party version of him, just because, you know, Hasbro hasn't made a retool of it. And as much as I love the Power and the Primes back there, it has weak joints, all that stuff, just like all the other guys do. So, you know, it's hard to pose them. You know, Ripper Snapper doesn't like to stay tabbed in, all that stuff. So I do think this one deserves a remold, but here's the problem that I see with it. But I also do see a fix to it. It would be hard to make this guy into the frame combiners that, you know, Hasbro is known for doing right now. Now we have seen with like the Bruticus mold where Swindle and Blastoff sort of maltransform into, you know, the leg component. And honestly, if they could do that with the, you know, the Terracons and made them maltransform into the frame, cool, but I don't want it compromising the actual stuff. I really do see this one being the main line soon, just because it is a G1 combiner, but other than that, I do think that this one will have to stay in 5th place. Now, in 4th place, we have Optimus Maximus. Now, why do I say this one is so high up? You know, basically they would just retool it, recolor it from the Minosaur gift set, and that would be your reason right there. Now, the only difference is that the original Optimus Maximus from Combiner Wars did have Ironhide, so I do think they would have to design a truck one, or, you know, they might even just switch it out, you know, give them, you know, probably just one of the other car Autobots and call it a day, just for the fun of it. Now, it's one of those things that G1, you know, they did go disguised as, you know, Minosaur type thing. So I really do think they would make this guy, like I said, it'd just be a recolor, retool of everything. So I really don't see them putting in too much work, gifting us the set, and bam, there we go. Next combiner is out of the way. Now they're moving on to the next. Now, in 3rd place, we have Ruination. Now, some of y'all might not know who Ruination is. Now, in the Transformers Earth Force, this one is made out of Impactor and some of the other Autobot wreckers. But the one I am talking about is actually from, I believe, the Japanese version of the show, where instead of Bruticus being his natural colors, he is basically the actual military colors that people would use. So, like the greens, the camo. I do think Roll Bar, which is the Swindle repaint, is actually a little bit of an orange tan. And then I know bra is a different color. So, I do think there would be a little bit of a difference, but here's the reason why I do think they will make it. It's just a retool and recolor. Actually, they don't even have to retool. They'll probably just recolor it, recolor the plastic, make money off of their mold, push it out to us, and bam, just as a gift set, and here we go. Here's a recolor of all your Combaticons as Ruination, and then hype it up. I really do want this figure just because, hey, the United Warriors one is like $600 on the aftermarket. I do not know if there's any third-party versions of this. I did try looking before making this video, but I did not see any. So that's the reason why I do think Hasbro would put the least effort in and probably put this one out in front, just because it's just a recolor of all the Combaticons. Bam, there. Now, second place. We only have 2 combiners left. If you sort of been scratching off with me, which one am I going to put? Well, I do think second place will have to be taken by Computron. Computron is one of those combiners that is deeply personal with me. I like the tech aspect. I love the Grimlock's new brain arc in G1. And that's the reason why I really do think this one would be up there. For starters, we now have 6 Decepticon combiners at the time of making this video versus the 3 Autobot combiners that we have. And when I say 3, it's because we don't have, even though we're promised the Nexus one, we only have the Nexus torso piece. So, I don't know if we're really counting that one as a combiner yet, but hey, there we go. But Hasbro's marketing team did announce that they was going to focus more on the G1 combiners first than the others. So that's the reason why I'm putting this one up here. Plus, Computron being the Autobot, I really do think the next combiner that is put out is going to be an Autobot. This one's very great. It's very remembered. From what I know of, a bunch of my buddies who, is looking for combiners is actually looking for Computron itself. Aftermarket prices on this guy is like $300, $400. So, they're around the exact same price you would pay for a regular Transformer when you're combining all of them together. So, hey, Hasbro, get on it. I can really see them retooling the Silverbolt into Scattershot, and instead of making a base for, the little extra pieces that's there, I can see him making them into that cannon mode that he had for like 0.3 seconds in G1 for Scattershot. But there's that one. Now, Streetwise, I think they could probably retool Wild Rider into that one. And then same thing for probably like the Firefly mode, or not mode, mold. I think they could, they'll have to do like a heavy retool, but I think they could do a heavy retool on, one of the arm bots from Superion to become Strafe. Now, the other 2, they would obviously have to remake, or not remake, but redesign for themselves, and then, but I do see them probably making the first combiner that's on the top of the list first, and then basically remaking those ones out of that. Now, in the timeline of these, there is one combiner that comes in front of Computron. That is Defensor. Defensor is made out of 5 protected bots: Groove, Hotspot, Streetwise, First Aid, and Blades. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, it took me a minute. But this one is, a little bit more closer to me just because I do like this one. This is actually the one I am trying to find a, sort of recolor, not even a recolor, just a more recent update of, from a third party listing. But, everyone that I see, either, they're $200 Seriously, why are they $200? But I guess that's what we get for, having third-party figures. But, and then you also have stuff like the Demon Rider 1, which I'll show up here on screen now. That one is pretty cool. I do like the more accurate chest than the Combiner Wars one. But, even then, I still think Hasbro would make this one first. Just because of the simple fact of, this one came first in the timeline. They are worried about G1, getting all that stuff done. And then I really think they could do exactly what I said earlier for Victorion. Take the fire truck mold, take Onslaught, make them into the fire truck mold, add it to where it's like a big fire truck. Just that way, the frame's actually being used. Then, stuff like blades could be a retool, recolor Vortex. So, bam, there's that one. Streetwise, be a recolor of, either Breakdown or Wild Rider. There we go. We have another one. Now, they would have to design / what's the word? Actually make First Aid and Groove. So I do see that one. Maybe that's the reason why it's taking so long. Just because they had to design 2 new figures. But I really do think out of all of them, this will be the next combiner that is there. So, hey, that's my list. So that is my list of where I would put the 16 combiners that, I do know of. Now, if I miss one, drop it in the comments. I might even place it in the separate, category. Maybe I did miss it. I'm terribly sorry. But I would also like to know, where do you rank these combiners? Do you think we would get, someone like Volcanicus before Defensor? Or, would we get a Grand Calvatronus before, maybe Ultra B and stuff like that? Tell me what you think down in the comments below. And, hey, thank you for stopping by.
Hey, dude, have you heard the news?
What is that?
We have the new combiner.
We're getting a new one?
Yep.
What do you mean we're getting a new one? They've already announced it?
Yep, it's G2 Minosaur.
Does everyone know about this but me? Oh, well. Alright, guys. Well, here's the newest combiner, G2 Minosaur. Yay! Really? Hasbro, really? G2 after I spent hours making this video? Really? G2 Minosaur? I mean, I'm not gonna complain, but still, G2 Minosaur? Y'all couldn't have done another combiner? Did you really have to ruin my video by making a G2 Minosaur? Thanks. Until next time.